A hobbit named Bilbo Baggins gets recruited by a wizard named Gandalf and 13 dwarves to steal gold from a dragon named Smog. How does this go? Let's review The Hobbit and find out. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be reviewing The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you would probably be very confused as to why I am reading the Lord of the Rings series, specifically starting with The Hobbit right here. Because as you may or may not know, I don't like fantasy. I just find it generally boring. It's mostly about just world building instead of characters, which I prefer over world building. But anyway, I don't want to really spoil my thoughts for The Hobbit just quite yet, but I gotta say, The Hobbit was certainly different from most fantasy I've read, and it actually has kept my interest all the way through, and I actually really enjoyed it. So, yeah, anyway, but so of course The Hobbit is the first book in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth saga. It is, of course, followed by the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I have yet to read. And then there was a prequel made for it called the Silmarillion. And then, of course, there's unfinished stories of Midworld, I think, or Middle-earth. Whatever it's called. Anyway, so yeah, Tolkien is, of course, very famous. He made the Hobbits and Gandalf and all that. So I'm sure J.R.R. Tolkien needs no introduction. But yeah, anyway, to explain what The Hobbit is really about, let's get into the story of The Hobbit. So The Hobbit begins with our main character, Bilbo Baggins, living in his little hobbit hole on the edge of Bag's End. And he's just having a peaceful life. It's like he just has nothing really going on. He just likes to eat and just enjoy life and whatever. And so that's how his life is. I think he's like 51 in The Hobbit, so that's just how his life has been for like the longest time ever. And then the next day he meets this wizard named Gandalf. And so Gandalf is like, "Hey Bilbo, so I'm actually assembling a crew to go on an adventure quest. So do you want to come with us?" And Bilbo's like, "Nah, I don't think so, but you should go. Sounds fun though." So the next morning, Bilbo then gets a bunch of people at his door, which are all the 13 dwarves that will go on this journey with him. And so Gandalf is there too. And basically what this does is this just is them kind of planning out their whole adventure. And I mean, there's a lot of dwarves, like there's Feely and Killy, Owen and Glowin. I think one is called Flowin, but I'm not sure. There's like a bunch of like Boffer and Bofer or whatever it was. There's like a bunch of like weirdly named dwarves, but the main one that we're focusing on is the head dwarf, Thorin. He's kind of like the main dwarf throughout this story. So yeah, we'll see a lot of Thorin. Anyway, so basically what happens is that they all kind of plan out this trip, and Bilbo still doesn't want to go, so he goes to sleep, and the next morning he just kind of joins along with them because they kind of make him. He's like, okay, because hobbits are very small. They're about half the size of humans. And so basically Bilbo being small, he can like be the burglar, as they say, to get the gold that Smaug has stolen from them. And so basically this book is just the journey to the Lonely Mountain where Smaug lives with his gold. But they encounter a lot of stuff on the way. It's like they get caught by trolls, so Gandalf has to save them. They go by this place called Rivendell, where they stay for about a day, and they meet some like they meet some like elves and like elven kings, and they have to fight off a bunch of spiders in the woods after Gandalf leaves them. So there's that. But before Gandalf does leave them, they end up in this mountain called the Misty Mountain, where they are captured by goblins. And so basically this is just them escaping from the goblins and stuff. But so Bilbo, he ends up getting separated from the group, and while he's walking alone in the mountain, he stumbles upon this this little tiny ring he just finds there. And he also finds this creature named Gollum, but Gollum will be saved for the Rings trilogy, so we'll get back to him when I get to doing the Rings trilogy. But anyway, Bilbo discovers that when he puts on this ring, he turns invisible. So he basically uses that invisibility to find his way out of the mountain and regroup with everyone else. So then, of course, they get to that jungle thing. Gandalf leaves them. They fight off the spiders and have to escape and all that. And then they just keep going on more adventures until they reach Lonely Mountain, where, of course, Smaug is. And so the deal is that since Bilbo has the ring, he can become invisible. He wears the ring and steals some gold from Smaug, because Smaug is just like sleeping right on top of all the treasure and gold and whatever. But when he senses that some gold has been taken, he gets very mad, kind of yells at Bilbo, and then goes out to destroy the nearest town. And so then he is very quickly taken down by a man named Bard. So there you go. The humans have taken down Smaug. Okay. Anyway, so back to the hobbits. They're kind of getting out of the mountain. They got their treasure and stuff. And so anyway, now we got goblins and humans and dwarves and elves and, Bilbo. And then everyone's like, we want that gold. So now it's a giant fight between all five of these armies. The Battle of the Five Armies. That was the third Hobbit movie. So yeah, and then Gandalf shows up. He's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be fighting. And then so Bilbo gets knocked out, and then the fight ends. Anyway, long story short, the fight ends. The dwarves win, but Thorin is very injured in the process. And on his deathbed, he tells Bilbo that he's been nothing but a fool this whole time. And so in the end, Bilbo takes the 14th of the treasure because he was promised a 14th of the treasure. So he just goes back to his home and then just continues to live life like he always has. And that is how The Hobbit ends. So as someone who doesn't like fantasy, what did I think of The Hobbit? I actually thought The Hobbit was really good. I've heard that J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit was made more for children. It's like easy fantasy for children to get into. And then I've heard that the Rings trilogy is like more like complex and interesting and stuff like that. So I'm not going to exactly rush right into the Rings trilogy. I do want to do that eventually, so stay tuned for that. I can't promise when I'll get to it. I'm just promising that I'll get to it in the future because, of course, The Hobbit was actually really interesting. As someone who, doesn't like fantasy, I would actually even go on to say that I despise fantasy. It's my least favorite book genre, and I think I made that very clear in my videos. But The Hobbit was interesting. It's like, as I said, it was written for a child audience, so it's not very complex. It's easy to understand. It's easy to get into. And it was actually pretty entertaining because, as I've mentioned before, fantasy mostly focuses on world building and the magic systems or whatever exists in there, and kind of doesn't really focus on the characters that much. But The Hobbit, I'm glad to say, is the exact opposite. Of course, we do have like an entire map of the world. We do know what the world looks like, but this is very much a character-based story rather than like a plot-driven story, like a magic-based story, whatever. So I will say that was very refreshing. So yeah, for my first J.R.R. Tolkien book, The Hobbit was just super fun, super interesting, and I cannot wait to get into the Rings trilogy and even Silmarillion or Unfinished Tales from Middle-earth if I choose to go that far. But anyway, the main theme I'm noticing in The Hobbit is greed. Because think about it, the only reason the dwarves are going after Smaug is because he stole their stuff and they want to get it back. And Thorin at the end, he says he's been a fool because his desire for getting all this gold and jewels and stuff back was that he's been losing part of his humanity. Like he's been getting mad at people. It's like the whole point is that greed takes away your humanity and you can't focus on the simple things in life. So that's what I really think The Hobbit is about. Greed and focusing on the stuff that really matters, like humility and your actual life and stuff. Like, don't just dedicate your life to something stupid. Just, like, live your life how you want to. Don't be greedy. Don't be selfish. And, yeah, so not only is it just a really good book, but I think it's a good message for children to learn from, which is don't be greedy. Ironic, because there are 3 Hobbit movies when they could have only made 1. I think everyone's pointed that out by now, but still. Anyway, so yeah, I think The Hobbit is just a wonderful little book about interesting characters and an interesting message for children about enjoy the little things in life and don't be greedy. But anyway, so yeah, in conclusion, please go read The Hobbit if you have not already, because I loved it so much, and I'm not into fantasy, so that's certainly saying something. And if you have read The Hobbit and even the Ring trilogy, go start this series all over again. I promise you'll like it again. Whatever time this will be for you reading it, whether it's your second, your first, or your 70th. I think that you will enjoy reading it again. So please, go read The Hobbit. But that is the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of The Hobbit. As I said, it's just such a fun book, and I will definitely be looking into more fantasy in the future since I like The Hobbit so much. But we'll get to that bridge when we cross it, or we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyway, but yeah, in the meantime, I actually have a ring right here. It's invisible, but it makes sense that it's invisible because I can also go invisible. So, let's see how this goes. See, guys, look, I'm invisible. And I'm gonna go do something. Ooh, I have an idea. Ooh, that diamond is mine. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I gotta get out of here. I'm running. Did they follow me? Did they see me? No. Okay, good. Okay, I'm safe. And it's all thanks to this little ring.